one of the clearest indications that we have thoroughly confused the holy celebration of the birth of Jesus with the secular trappings of the Christmas season is the eclectic choices that people make in their yard decorations this time of year. I don't mind the chronological confusion of having the shepherds and the wise men at the nativity scene at the same time, but it is somewhat jarring to have that tableau juxtaposed with Santa and his 8 tiny reindeer, or Frosty the Snowman seemingly joining in with the carolers in the singing of O Holy Night. There is, however, one decoration this time of year that, for me at least, is thoroughly Christian, and that is the placing of candles in windows. Secular people may see that simply as a highlight of their decorations, but for me, I think it means a proclamation of the fact that God's light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Tradition tells us that the lighting of candles goes back to the remembrance of Mary and Joseph looking for a place for her to have her baby, and of the Magi following a star as they travel on a long journey through a strange land. I don't know about you, but it seems like every day now we are on a long journey through a strange land. Most of you who wrote our Advent devotionals this year must have felt the same way. I've noted that almost every one of them began with an acknowledgement that we live in a strange time when all of our lives are upturned by the pandemic. Perhaps that's one of the reasons that this year we're seeing the decorations being put up early. I think people are doing everything they can to kind of overcome the darkness of this season. Putting up lights and other decorations early is an act of resistance. But we should remember that gloom is part of the celebration of Christmas, that the birth of Jesus did not only come with happiness and joy, but also with violence and with anger and confusion. We often brush aside those details of the story. We play the no room in the end more as comedy than as the gut-wrenching catastrophe that it might be for a young pregnant woman and her husband. We ignore Augustus Caesar and his violent threats and his total control of the Roman people. And we brush aside Herod with his threats of violence and with the killing of the holy innocents and the flight to Egypt. But I think when we see those things, it reminds us not just of the bad things, but the fact that God is with us in those difficult times in our lives. I see it more as an encouragement. This year, it seems that those plot turns are the ones that we focus on more. It is not something that sounds like it comes out of a fairy tale that we read to children or out of a news story from a distant land. It is the kind of thing that you and I are living now, but the light shines even in the midst of that. I'm reminded of the old proverb, it is better to light one candle than to curse the darkness. In some traditions at Easter time, a deacon brings a light into the room and cries out, "The light of Christ." He does that 3 times, and each time the people say, "Thanks be to God." And then, of course, I'm reminded of our passages tonight from the Hebrew Scriptures and then from the Gospel of John, that the people who've walked in darkness have seen a great light. And that light was the light of all humanity, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. This is what happened in the coming of Christ in the world, and it's what happens in our lives as well whenever we let the light come in. So let us light candles in the darkness. As we set those out, let that be a proclamation of what we need. And what I think we need more than anything else this year is hope. It is not an empty-headed optimism. Instead, it is a hope that God will be with us in the midst of our troubles, because these things don't shock God. God has been through them before, and God will see us through them again. So let us light our candles, but lighting candles is not enough. Lighting candles and putting a little more light in the room doesn't enable government to do its work. It doesn't help the vulnerable. It doesn't feed the hungry or clothe the poor, but it is at least a start. It is a statement, a profession of faith that God will see us through this as God has through other things. So let us light our candles. Let the light shine in the darkness, and the darkness will never overcome it.